إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله قال الله عز وجل في القرآن المجيد سيقول السفهاء من الناس ما ولاهم عن قبلتهم التي كانوا عليها قل لله المشرق والمغرب يهدي من يشاء إلى صراط مستقيم صدق الله العظيم أما بعد. We begin by praising Allah, our Creator, the one who made everything, the one who tests us, and the one who sets up the circumstances for those tests. We praise Him, and we ask His help in all the challenges that we face in this world. And we ask for His forgiveness in all the mistakes that we make while undergoing the trials that He puts us through. As Muslims, we declare that nobody deserves to be worshipped in any way, shape, or form besides Allah. And we declare that Muhammad was the last and final prophet and messenger that has been sent for our guidance and the guidance of all people until the end of time. Respected brothers and sisters, the first thing I want to talk about is that today is a day which is celebrated by many people to be supposedly the birth of Prophet Isa alayhi salam, the birth of Prophet Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him. And even though the Christian church officially says that they know this is really not the day of his birth, they go ahead and they celebrate this day anyways. So that's one thing that many people don't know. They don't know for certainty on what day Prophet Isa alayhi salam was actually born in the first place. The second thing that many people do not know is that they do not know that Muslims, 1.6 billion people in the world, also believe in Prophet Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him. And therefore it is our responsibility as Muslims to at minimum inform our friends, inform people of this basic fact that Muslims also believe in the messenger of Allah, Isa, Jesus. Because when you tell people, especially people who are not hostile to you, when you tell them this fact, usually people are surprised, and usually it's a positive surprise. It's usually an ice-breaking surprise, which actually people, they feel that they're closer to you now because they don't know this fact. So make sure as Muslims, you fulfill your responsibility with wisdom and in a kind and a nice, gentle way. You let other people know that Muslims also revere Prophet Isa alayhi salam. But that's not the actual topic I wanted to focus on. Last week, I was at the mall, Main Place Mall to be exact. I was buying some clothes. It was not Christmas shopping or something like that. I was buying some clothes for myself, just in case you got any whispers from shaitan in your mind. And I go use the bathroom because I needed to go. And I'm finished and I'm washing my hands. And I see that there's a 10-year-old, looked like 10-year-old, staring at me. And I'm still washing my hands. I look at him, just give a little smile, and continue doing what I'm doing. Finish up, and I notice that he's still staring at me. I say, okay, smile at him again, dry my hands, and as I start walking out of the bathroom to continue my shopping, he says from behind my back, as they say, backbiting in Islam, he says from behind my back, he says, terrorist. And I think for a moment, start to walk a little bit slower, and I'm thinking, should I turn around and should I speak to this kid? Because obviously it's very clear, I could tell by his voice, he didn't mean it in like an aggressive and a harmful way, but this kid is just trying to be naughty, basically. And he's been brainwashed by the propaganda that he's watching on TV. So I think for a moment, I'm really late to an appointment. I really need to go. Should I turn around? Should I not? I decide, it didn't bother me at all. I can teach a lesson another day. Let me just keep walking. And as I keep on walking, he says it again. He says, terrorist. Now I'm thinking again, now I really should turn around and I should say something. and I should go and talk to him. But then I thought about it and I let it be. And the reason why I let it be, because one, it didn't bother me personally, and two, I would not have a proper opportunity to educate this child because his parents were not there. And had his parents been there, had his parents not been there, it may have looked like, a Muslim coming and, talking to this person and getting into a quarrel or a fight or something like that. I left it. But the interesting thing was, I wasn't offended at all because of my age and this child's age. But I know, if I was a 5th grader and this kid was in my school and he said the same thing to me, I would be very offended and I would be very hurt by this statement. And I know that there are many Muslim school children today who are undergoing this exact same thing, and it's happening to them. And their friends are making fun of them, and their teachers are actually going and saying ridiculous and dumb statements. One teacher walked in and made a joke about a Muslim student. This was in the news. About a Muslim student, said, "Hey, do you have a bomb in your backpack?" Ha ha ha. The kids got a laugh, and then everyone sits down. This is what's happening. And I know that if this was an adult who was speaking to me, I would also feel attacked, because your honor naturally hurts you. And I know that many people, many Muslims today, they're going through things like this. And it's not easy to deal with these things. It's something that gets to you. So I just want to know, I want people to understand that I totally understand what people are going through, and that you're not alone. But the question is, today, is how should we react to these things that are happening? What should we do, and what is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to do? Because this is the reality of the situation. This is not to scare you, but this is for us to understand the reality in which we live. Because what's happening is, we have people getting words thrown at them. We have people getting stares thrown at them just because they're Muslim. And the amount of hate crimes against Muslims on average has been 12.6 per month. Hate crimes against Muslims. And that includes vandalizing a mosque. That includes firebombing the Coachella mosque. That includes going and actually assaulting someone or ripping off the hijab from a sister. But since Paris attacks on November 13th, the number of Muslim, attacks against Muslims has tripled, has gone 3 times as much because of the media, because of the propaganda, because of all of these things that are happening. So people are stepping up this rhetoric. And we have to ask ourselves as Muslims, what's happening? And why is it happening? And all people need to ask themselves, because the America that we viewed, or we want, or we have been led to believe, is that it's that great melting pot where all religions come together, and all different cultures come together, and there's no issue dealing with one another. There's no problems. Everyone can get along just fine, and they can maintain their own identities. And there are people who have been proponents of this message since a long time in America. Thomas Jefferson said in a statement about religious tolerance, he said, "It does me no injury for my neighbor to say whether there's 20 gods or there's no God." What he's saying is, for me it doesn't matter if the person who's living next door to me, if he believes in 20 gods, or he doesn't believe in God, or he believes in one God, or whatever it may be, he believes in 3 gods, it doesn't bother me, because it neither picks my pocket nor breaks my leg. What he meant by that is that as long as the person is not harming me, as long as the person is not stealing from me, they can believe whatever they want, and I can live in peaceful coexistence with this person. This is a vision that has been there. This is a vision that many people still have, and they should have. But there are some people today who are trying to disrupt that vision. There are some people today making ridiculous statements, and we know who they are, and we know how it's affecting us. And the question should be, are we reacting correctly? Are we reacting to these statements in the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to react? And there's an incident that happened. There's an incident that happened in the lifetime of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, where a verse was revealed which gives us some insight into how to react to the situation. And that incident was that when the Muslims migrated from Mecca to Medina, there had to be a decision to be made. Will Muslims face the direction of Mecca when they pray for their Qibla? Or will they face in a different direction towards Jerusalem, where the Jews were actually facing? Because Prophet Ibrahim ﷺ not only built the Kaaba, but he built the special place over there as well in Jerusalem. So the decision was given by Allah that the Muslims will initially face towards Jerusalem. After 16 months approximately, about a year and a half, the revelation came down from Allah that says that the change of the Qibla is going to happen now. Muslims will now start facing the direction of Mecca. There has to be a differentiation, there has to be a change in the Qibla. But before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this verse, He revealed another verse telling Muslims that when I tell you to change your direction of Qibla, you're going to see that some people are going to start reacting against you. They're going to start speaking against you. They're going to start making fun of you. And what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell us about that situation? He said in Surah Al-Baqarah, سَيَقُولُ السُّفَهَاءُ مِنَ النَّاسِ مَا وَلَّاهُمْ عَنْ قِبْلَتِهِمُ الَّتِي كَانُوا عَلَيْهَا. He says that the people will say, the fools among the people will say, as-sufaha means foolish people. So ignoramuses. سَيَقُولُ السُّفَهَاءُ مِنَ النَّاسِ. The fools among people will say to you, what has turned these people away from their direction of prayer? Why are they doing this? This doesn't make any sense. Why are they changing it? That they used to be on this direction of prayer and now they're on a different direction of prayer. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ, tell them, لِلَّهِ الْمَشْرِقُ وَالْمَغْرِبُ. To Allah belongs all the directions, east and the west. It doesn't matter what direction you pray. The direction that is being set for you is not about one direction or another. It's obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commandment to you. He has a wisdom behind it, and He says, يَهْدِي مَن يَشَاءُ إِلَى صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ. Allah guides people, whomever He wants, He sees goodness in them, to the straight path. What is the response there? Let's reflect upon it for a moment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling the Muslims that sayaqul, sa means they haven't said it yet. They're about to say it. The moment the order comes down and you guys change your direction of prayer, there's going to be a group of people in the community that's going to start criticizing you and making fun of you and getting upset at you. And what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describe them as being? Sufaha'u minan nas. These are the fools among the people. Allah is saying, don't let them get underneath your skin. Don't pay any attention to what they're saying. So when today we find that these people are making ridiculous statements, like Trump going and saying that we should ban Muslims from entering this country, and we should register Muslims. And then you have Ben Carson saying, yeah, I support Muslim registration, and I think that no Muslim should be president. And you have Ted Cruz and Jeb Bush making clearly bigoted statements saying we should only allow Christian refugees from Syria into this country. Only Christian refugees, not Muslim refugees. If they're Muslim, they shouldn't be allowed into this country. These are exactly what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, سَيَقُولُ السُّفَهَاءُ مِنَ النَّاسِ. The fools among the people are going to make statements like this. And what happens when you realize that a foolish person is speaking to you? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us, don't let this person get to you. Don't let these people bother you because they're not rational. They're not speaking rationally. If an animal came and started barking at you, would you get upset? Why is this dog barking at me? No, because you treat it differently because you realize it doesn't have the intellect like an average normal human being. You don't let it bother you, you deal with it in a different way. So let's move up, inshallah ta'ala. I've been asked to ask everyone to move up, inshallah. This is what we need to remember, brothers and sisters. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, because I know it gets to me, these type of statements, it gets to me the same way it gets to you, but as Muslims we need to stop and we need to pause and say, well, wait a minute. Who are these people in the first place that we should get stressed over what they're saying? There was a survey, a poll that was done, and the poll asked people, how many of you think we should bomb the city of Agrabah? And 30% of Republican voters responded, we need to bomb that city. We need to bomb Agrabah. Do you know where Agrabah is? Agrabah is the fictitious city in the Disney movie Aladdin. It doesn't exist. It was in a cartoon produced by Disney that people grew up watching. And they think that we need to go and bomb the city of Agrabah, which doesn't exist. سَيَقُولُ السُّفَهَاءُ مِنَ النَّاسِ. Subhanallah. We can't let people like this get underneath our skin. We can't allow people who are making these statements, who are being brainwashed and getting propaganda to them, we can't allow them to let it disrupt our practice of Islam. Because we need to keep going. And as Muslims, we realize we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we believe in the power and the might of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we believe in the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if we do not get every single ounce of justice in this life, we need to go back to the Quran and say, what does Allah tell us? What can give us reassurance? What can give us something that will make us realize that, you know what, we're okay. Everything's okay. It's not the end of the world. We don't need to start removing our hijab. We don't need to stop praying. We don't need to pretend like we're not Muslim anymore. What can give us this confidence? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us it's going to happen, and it's happened to people in the past. He warned us and He said these type of things are going to happen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says regarding death, He says, كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ. Every single soul shall taste death. Eventually, everyone has to die. It doesn't matter whether you like it, doesn't matter what your belief system is, it doesn't matter what you do, everyone's going to die at some point. It says, وَإِنَّمَا تُوَفَّوْنَ أُجُورَكُمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. And on the day of judgment, you will be given back your reward, your recompense. You will have what you earned on the day of judgment. فَمَنْ زُحْزِحَ عَنِ النَّارِ وَأُدْخِلَ الْجَنَّةَ فَقَدْ فَازَ. Whoever is able to protect himself from the fire and enters into paradise, that person has been successful. Truly successful. That's the real definition of success for a believer. He says, وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. What is this worldly life except an abode of deception? We get so attached to this life that we think it's the be-all and it's the end-all. And what's interesting is after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sets that up for us, He says, don't worry about all that. Focus on what you need to focus on. The next verse is really interesting because it's directly relevant to our circumstance. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, first He said this, and then He followed it up with, لَتُبْلَوُنَّ فِي أَمْوَالِكُمْ وَأَنفُسِكُمْ. You will be tested. You will be tested with your wealth. You will be tested with your lives, with yourselves. وَلَتَسْمَعُنَّ مِنَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ. And you will hear from the people who have been given the book before you. وَمِنَ الَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا أَذًى كَثِيرًا. And from the people who associate partners with Allah, and people who don't believe, you will hear أَذًى كَثِيرًا. You're going to hear a lot of hurt. You're going to hear a lot of harm. What is adha? Adha is any type of harm, any type of hurt, something that bothers you, something that literally hurts you. Whether it's physical, whether it's emotional, whether it's psychological, you're going to hear a lot of that from a lot of different people. And what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell us? Did He say start crying? Did He say get mad? Did He say do this, do that? He didn't say all of these things. What should our actual reaction be? Our initial reaction and our continuous reaction. What should it be? وَإِن تَصْبِرُوا وَتَتَّقُوا فَإِنَّ ذَلِكَ مِنْ عَزْمِ الْأُمُورِ. If you're able to have patience, what does patience mean? It doesn't mean that you sit there and say, I'm going to be a punching bag, I'm not going to do anything, I'm not going to say anything, I'm not going to report you, I'm not going to do this. That's not what it means. وَإِن تَصْبِرُوا, it means that if you can control yourself, if you can make sure you don't say anything that's going to go beyond the limits that Allah has set for you. If you can take it and say, you know what, I'm not going to lose my faith because of this, I'm not going to lose my sleep because of this. وَإِن تَصْبِرُوا وَتَتَّقُوا. And if you have taqwa, if you come closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, taqwa is piety. It's translated literally as consciousness of Allah. If you can attain piety, if you can get to this level, فَإِنَّ ذَلِكَ مِنْ عَزْمِ الْأُمُورِ. That would be the most amazing thing. That would be the most fantastic thing that could ever happen, because that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to do. And that's what we need to understand, brothers and sisters, is that Allah puts us through tests. And He promised that He would put us through tests. The question is not if you're going to be tested. The question is, when are you going to be tested? And for how long is that test going to last? And it's a difficult thing, because we're not programmed to like this. Right? We're programmed to, let's go do something right now. We got to do something immediately. But immediate things are not always the solution. The first thing is, if you lose yourself, and if you lose your taqwa, and if you lose your Muslim identity because you're focused so much on the harm that is afflicting you, then what have you actually gained? What have you actually achieved? So now as Muslims, we need to remember that we are being tested right now. And when people are being tested, it brings out the best in some people, and it brings out the worst in some people. And we need to make sure that for us, it brings out the best. Even when it comes to people who are not Muslim, it brings out even the best and the worst in them. And I just talked to you about some of the worst case scenarios. Some of the worst people making some of the worst statements. But there are some of the best even. There are people who've walked into our mosque and they've literally said, I just decided to drive down here and just tell you guys that I know all this propaganda on these TV channels and all that. I know none of this is true. One guy came in here and said, man, I lived through the Japanese internment. I lived through the persecution of the Jews. I lived through the persecution of the Irish Catholics. I lived through all of that in this country. And I've learned my lesson through all of that. And I see the same thing now is happening to you Muslims. And I see the same signs in all the way that people are talking. And I know this is wrong and this is unjust. I just drove by to stop by and tell you and let you know that I know this is wrong. And I'm not being affected by all this propaganda. And there are other people out there like that. There was a pastor who issued a statement. And this was a very interesting statement. He said he called on all other Christian pastors around the country. Every single one of them needs to denounce publicly every single crime committed by a Christian. And it's the responsibility of every church to root out every single Christian that commits any type of violent, extreme crime across the country. And he said, now I know that people are going to respond and say, that's ridiculous, that's crazy, that's not fair. You can't ask us to do that, it's not our responsibility. And he said, yeah, you're right. I'm not telling you to do it because it's fair. I'm telling you to do it because it's insane. And because this is exactly what Muslim Americans are being asked to do today. And the insanity that they're being asked to do, we're going to do the same thing just as a sign of solidarity with them. That takes guts. That shows you that in times of tribulation, people's goodness comes out of them. And when it comes to Muslims, we need to make sure that our goodness comes out of us as well. And we need to ask ourselves, why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala testing us? What does He want us to do? He wants us to get closer to Him. He wants us to wake up. Many people in the Muslim community, they've been sleeping for a very long time. Let's be honest. They've been sleeping. Islam has been simple identity. You're a capital M Muslim. Meaning this is my identity. I check a tick mark there and it's checked. But what do you do beyond coming for Jummah prayer? Outside of maybe praying a little bit more, maybe doing one community here and there. How dedicated are you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How firm is your Islam? How much is there in your submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How much is Islam valuable in your life? Is it a part of your life, or does it encompass and guide your entire life? All of us need to ask ourselves the same question, myself included. What is Islam for us? This is what Allah wants us to do. And Allah is sending these tests, this rising Islamophobia, anti-Muslim sentiment. People are staring at you now, people are looking at you here and there. Allah is sending this as a test, like an alarm clock ringing and saying, wake up. And many people, for them, they wake up and they hear the alarm clock ringing and they say, oh, let's just do anything we can do to make the alarm clock turn off. Throw it away, break it, smash it, so that we can go back to sleep. But that's not the purpose what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. Allah wants us to wake up through these incidents, and He's forcefully telling us, wake up now. Like a person who's afflicted with a terminal illness, and then all of a sudden they say, now I'm awake. Now I'm going to change my life. Now I'm going to start praying. Now I'm going to start coming to the masjid. Now I'm going to start giving in charity. I've been stingy all this time. You see how people change when they're hit with circumstances? That's the reason why Allah gives them the circumstances. Because they wouldn't have changed had they not been given these circumstances. As Yusuf Islam, Cat Stevens, the famous singer, when he accepted Islam, this is a story that always resonates with me. He says, the best thing that happened in my life was when I contracted tuberculosis. People said, this is crazy. This guy's gone crazy. He said, no, this is the best thing that happened in my life, because I was on tour, I had the money, I had the girls, I had everything. And I drank so much, he got tuberculosis, ended up in the hospital, and he said, this was the best thing in my life that ever happened, because it waked me up, and it made me realize there's more to life than all of this. I've just been distracted, and now I need to focus on what my life is really about, and that brought him to Islam. And that changed his entire direction in life. So as Muslims, brothers and sisters, don't be scared. Don't be overly afraid. Yes, these things are happening, but realistically, the actual odds of you being afflicted by a hate crime is less than you jumping on the freeway and getting into a car accident on these California roads. Statistically speaking, that's the actual probability. So there's no need to get scared and say, I'm going to pretend like I'm not a Muslim anymore. I'm going to pretend and hide. We're not in those circumstances, really. If we were, then we can discuss the whole, fiqh of that, the Islamic law of that. But we're not. The reality is we're not. So don't go further away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Come closer to Allah. Be proud of Islam. Try to understand what your religion actually teaches, and respond to people. Talk to them. Explain to them what the true message of Islam is. And every single action that we do, every good deed we do in these circumstances, the difficult circumstances that we're living in, is multiplied because of the circumstances and the context in which we live. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us and guide us at all times. Ameen. Astaghfirullah li wa lakum wa li sa'iril muslimin fastaghfiruhu innahu huwal ghafurur rahim. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah, wa ba'd. To conclude, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in an authentic hadith, he said, "Ajaban li amri al-mu'min." He said, the situation of a believer is truly amazing. Inna amrahu kullahu khair. Everything the believer does is good. He has the potential to make it good. Everything they do is good. He says, وَلَيْسَ ذَاكَ لِأَحَدٍ إِلَّا لِلْمُؤْمِنِ. And nobody besides a true believer can have this circumstance or this situation. And then he explained what he meant. So, إِنْ أَصَابَتْهُ سَرَّاء شَكَرْ فَكَانَ خَيْرًا لَهُ. If something good happened to him, he was thankful to Allah. And therefore, that was good for him. So something good happens to you in this life, you thank Allah for it. Then what do you get? You get double good. The good thing happened in this life, and you were thankful to Allah, and because of your thanks, you get rewarded by Allah. وَإِنْ أَصَابَتْهُ ضَرَّاء صَبَرْ فَكَانَ خَيْرًا لَهُ. And if something bad happens to him in this life, he is patient, and that is good for him. Because when you show patience in the face of calamities or adversities or difficult times, you get rewarded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because that's part of our purpose in life. So we have to remember that the believer, the true believer, can always win. Because it's not about life circumstances that determine whether you're successful or not. It's your choice, your freedom of choice that Allah has given you. When you manifest it in the right way, and you decide to do what pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you win in the end of the day, no matter what. And nobody else can have this circumstance except for a believer. And that's why he said, Inna amrahu kullahu khair. Everything can potentially be good for a believer. And that's something to be positive about. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Allah, help us and guide us at all times. Oh Allah, allow us to do only that which would please you and to avoid anything which would displease you. Oh Allah, help us through these difficult and challenging circumstances. Oh Allah, grant us courage. Grant us the strength to move on. Oh Allah, grant us the ability to get closer to you. Oh Allah, remove the tyranny and the oppression from the world. Oh Allah, remove the propaganda and the false things that are being spread about Islam and Muslims. Oh Allah, open the hearts and minds of people to understand the true teachings of Islam. Oh Allah, allow us to live as true Muslims and allow us to die in a state of true belief. Ameen. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Wa salamun ala al-mursaleen. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. We have 3 quick announcements, brothers and sisters. First of all, there is no FFN program tonight. There is no Family Friday Night program here. Instead, we actually have a program in the Garden Grove Mosque, which is the Islamic Society of Orange County. It's going to be sponsored by IIOC and the College of Islamic Studies, and it's actually a discussion debate. It's called Going Beyond Condemnation, the Muslim response to violence in the name of Islam. See, every single time something happens in the name of Islam, or even if it's not in the name of Islam, but it's a Muslim, there's always some pressure. The Muslim community has to respond, people get interviewed. The question is, are we doing the right things? Or should we be responding differently? And if another incident happens, which it most likely potentially can happen, what did we do right when we responded? And what did we do wrong? And how can we respond better as a Muslim community? That's going to be a debate, and I'll be moderating that debate. It's going to be at 6 p.m. at the Islamic Society of Orange County in Garden Grove, inshallah. The second is that one of the mosques, the Coachella Mosque, was actually firebombed, and there's about $100,000 worth of damage there. And we have a fundraising campaign to help raise some funds so that they can start praying inside that mosque again, and the mosque can get repaired. So there's a box outside near the door that has a special fund for the Coachella Mosque. I highly encourage everyone to participate by giving a little something, so our brothers and sisters at Coachella can also continue to pray inside their mosque. And the third thing is that a lot of people are getting asked questions now with all of the propaganda and all of that. What does your Quran say? Does the Quran really say kill them and say that? And did the Prophet really do this? And all of these questions that Muslims are getting now, many people don't know how to respond to these questions. And if we get a good Islamic education, then we'll know how to respond to these questions. So we have a program here called the College of Islamic Studies, and our new quarter is going to be starting on January 14th. I strongly encourage every adult to enroll into that program. We have a table outside. Please check out the table for enrollment and for what classes we're going to be offering. We have classes on site and we have classes online. It's our responsibility to learn about Islam enough that we can convey it in a wise way to other people. Wa aqim as-salah.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا